Hey everybody, we are doing our first Q&A in about 4 years. We did one forever ago about building our house.
Yeah, and this one's about all this.
A lot has happened since then. And you asked some really great questions on Instagram and Facebook, so it'll be fun to answer them. For those of you who don't know, in the past couple years, we have had a faith expansion and transitioned out of our religion. And beautiful Shaye has transitioned. It's been quite the journey.
So if you want to check out our videos that show our journey, you can check them out in our playlist called Our Family in Transition. That will get you caught up really fast. So
some of these are fun, some of these are serious, and I saved some of the juicy ones for the end.
Okay.
So first question, how are you lovely ladies doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing pretty good.
And I'm sure what you mean by that is probably, are we still together? Yes, we are. We're very much still together. So we're married. I don't know if you guys knew that, but
Yeah, 17 years, going on 18.
no one thought we'd make it. What is your guys' favorite holiday?
Christmas for me.
That's boring, but it's true.
Taylor Swift fans?
Are you a Taylor Swift fan?
Yeah, absolutely. My sisters all went to the Eras tour. That we got another question about that, and I didn't get to go. I don't know that we're like crazy Swifties, but we really appreciate her music.
I like Taylor Swift, probably not as much as Amanda does. I'm the kind of person, even as a little kid, that would have loved to go to like a Hans Zimmer concert or a James Newton Howard or James Horner, who's since passed away, because I just love soundtracks. Like I was the one geeking out listening to scores when I was a kid.
So,
How has your transition been received by your extended family? We actually get this question a lot. And it's hard because I'm like a little sensitive to answering that because I think everyone's in different spaces as far as trying to understand this experience. But I think overall, everyone's been really kind. Like no one said to at least our faces that they disapproved or I think it's especially challenging with people who live within orthodoxy, within a religion, just because you have a very more of a black and white approach sometimes to what you view LGBT people and how they fit into that narrative.
and I think it's taken some people some time, to like process it. And before you came out publicly, our families all knew and that you were trans and kind of had time to process that. But I think it like when it's out in the open, it's a little different. But yeah, we're grateful to have a lot of support from family.
Also, part of that question says, did you lose any family member support because of your transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think there have definitely been like some extended family members who like maybe just like unfollowed us on all social media and things like that. And so I think some people feel a need to distance themselves. And that may be more about our faith shift than your transition. Sometimes I'm not sure. But we respect people's boundaries. It's okay for people to distance themselves. It's all right.
I feel like the older I get, the more I realize that it's like you can't make everyone happy. Go with the punches and pick your chosen family. So
Yeah.
and friends.
So we got quite a few questions about Skylar. And for those of you who don't know, Skylar is Shaye's brother. And he's a single father of quintuplets. And documents their family over at 5 to Love. So a question that we got, what are you most proud of Skylar for?
I'm proud of Skylar because, he's gone through a divorce as a single father raising quintuplets. I think that'd be a huge challenge. And really, a support for us has been really touching. So,
And we definitely really love Jamie and wish her all the best too.
how was the transition explained to the nieces and nephews? So referring to Skylar's quintuplets, I'd rather let Skylar answer that question. And like I said, maybe we'll have him on a future video. So
Yeah. I'm booked in to have my facial feminization surgery done in a few months. How did you approach the conversation with your kids?
okay, and so for those of you guys who don't know, facial feminization surgery is something I had done 7 months ago. And I'm still healing. It's a process, but so I'm guessing this is a trans woman who is getting facial feminization surgery asking how we approached our kids.
Yeah, I just remember talking to them because they were all aware of you being trans at that point. But this was like a really big outward step. And so we just explained that Shaye was getting facial surgery to feel more in alignment with who she is inside. I remember them being excited for you.
We do answer this question, I think, pretty good in our video, how our kids reacted to my gender transition. So
Yeah.
it'll be a good video to watch as well. Have any of your kids shown signs of gender dysphoria? That's actually a good question, because I would have thought probably the same thing. Being trans isn't very common. What's the percentage? It's like...
It's 2% of the population.
So if you can imagine 2% of the population being trans, the likelihood of your kids is pretty slim. But to answer your question, no, our kids haven't shown any signs. And I think with the supportive nature of how our home is, I think if they did, they probably would have talked about it to us by now.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, I was like 3 years old when I first knew there was something up with me. But yeah, we just want to raise our kids to not be a certain way. We're not going to raise them to be LGBT, but we're also not going to raise them to be straight. We're just going to love them for who they are, and I think that their authentic selves will manifest themselves. So,
how has it been living in a largely conservative religious area?
I would say at first it was really scary. Like we were planning on moving. We're like, we should just move. But what's funny is over time, we've started to meet a lot of amazing people that aren't just in the queer community, but just friends who have open minds. I've had friends that I've had for my whole life who have been so amazingly supportive. So it's really surprised me how loving and accepting people can be, especially when it's somebody that they know. And I think that's kind of what happens a lot of times is we hear about things that we don't understand, but then when it becomes personal, it can sometimes kind of open your heart. And that's been, I would say, our experience.
Yeah, it's been very touching. For several years, you were afraid if you did this, you might lose everybody. And that those people we've known forever that remain close to us, that it means a lot. It's a special thing.
And I know I have friends that probably don't understand it and maybe avoid conversations about it just because they don't know what to say. But I can honor that too, you know, and if they want to learn more, they can talk to me. So, have your kids received any backlash at school or anywhere from your faith shift and gender transition?
Yeah, I don't know in terms of like major backlash, but I think in a community where there is a really predominant religion, that it's in part natural. Like some of their friends from church, maybe their dynamic has changed with our kids. But people in general are polite and kind. And in terms of your gender transition, that's actually been a lot more positive than we expected. They have friends over all the time, and there's just a lot of parents here that are supportive of us, and their kids are as well. So that's been really sweet. So thankfully, no, so far, no backlash. Their teachers have been great. It's been positive.
Our kids, you know, people so often worry, and I understand because these are things we used to think about as well, but they worry about like, how are your kids going to be treated now? But I think the world is changing a lot, even here in conservative Southern Utah.
Do you/your family feel safe in your neighborhood and community?
I do.
It depends on like what kind of safety you're talking about. We are blessed to live in a really physically safe neighborhood. With some things, like during Pride Month, I had expected to put a pride flag out. And kind of when it came down to it, that felt a little bit too exposing. We've heard of a lot of our neighbors' flags getting burned and things like that, and I just didn't want to go through that. There is a degree of, you know, allyship is here, but there's a lot of kind of passive-aggressive dissonance to it also. Are you still affiliated with the Piano Guys? And are you still working in the industry?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. For those of you guys who don't know who the Piano Guys are, I think back in 2010, I believe, we started a group filming a piano and a cellist out in the middle of nowhere, and the channel really took off. You know, this is like early days of YouTube, so I think 7 million subscribers. But yeah, I've kept connection with this group, and I filmed many of their videos. I would say recently, no, I haven't made videos for them. I think in part because I'm just too expensive. No, and I've kept a good contact with a few of them, so it's been mostly positive. So. And
you are still working in the industry. You're still filming music videos.
Yeah, I just did one actually not long ago. So that was the first time I filmed a video presenting, you know, like this. It was so crazy cathartic. Like I never could imagine doing that. So that was really, really neat experience. How did Amanda choose a career in motherhood? Is she still a professor?
Okay, so the short version of the story is we struggled with infertility for a lot of years. So I had envisioned getting my bachelor's degree and maybe teaching high school. And then we couldn't get pregnant. And so I kept going to school because I didn't know what else to do with my time. And my bachelor's was in English. I knew that I loved this field. And so I ended up finishing my coursework for my PhD. And when we had little babies, I wrote my dissertation, which was really hard. So yes, I teach full-time as a professor of English. Love it. And actually, it's a pretty good career for balancing with motherhood. Puppy update, please. This is Hermione, our golden doodle. and she makes our family super happy.
Yeah, she's been our little therapy baby. So we also have Max, who is our little Yorkie, who is 13 years old, and he hides, so we'd have to find him. We'll show you sometime when we can
He's
find
here
him.
somewhere, but yeah.
My spouse is transitioning. How do I make peace with the fact that the future will look different? You guys wouldn't believe how many messages we've gotten from people within our community and just people around the world transitioning.
Yeah, I think my advice would just be to take it slow, to really listen to each other. I think communication is really important. And then there's a lot of things about the people that we love that actually aren't tied to their gender. And that's not something I understood before this or had even the opportunity to understand. But there are changes. But because I love Shaye, the essence of who she is actually hasn't changed. And I have come to understand her even better.
Yeah, I agree with Amanda. Just take it really slow. It's something I would highly encourage getting therapy with, and something that every couple's can have a different outcome, but time does a lot of things. So
That love between two people can look a lot of different ways too. How do you know your spouse actually accepts you instead of pretending? I ask for myself, so this is from a trans person.
that's actually a really good question. That's something I struggled with a lot. I really did. I didn't, and in a weird way, it's almost like I didn't want to believe Amanda that she really accepted me. Because then if she accepted me, the only thing that was in the way of me was me. And this is something we talk about a lot with our therapist. It's like, I would come up with all these excuses as to why I couldn't do this. And it was because I really had this programming that by me showing up in this way, that it would hurt other people. And I couldn't bear the thought of that. Like, that was something that was inconceivable, that it could hurt Amanda or our kids. And so I think working with a therapist and having her really explain to us that, like, you being the best version of you is going to be the best version for your spouse and for your kids. And then ultimately just believing Amanda when she says, yes, I choose this. So in what ways has this changed the dynamic of your marriage?
It's interesting how many, like when you're with somebody for a long time, how many like little like roles and things like that, you're just kind of set in stone. And I think I thought of myself as like an independent person and like a feminist for sure. But going through this experience, it's made me notice even more like, oh, like now that your gender has changed, things that I had expected you to do before that I didn't even realize that there was like certain gender role things. And then you kind of just stop and go, okay, whoa, we're two people. What are our choices, or what do we like want to do and show up as? Happiest memory as a couple.
I think our firstborn, having Emmy and taking her to Disneyland when she's way too young to even remember it, was really exciting for me. But
So fun. Yeah, so many things with parenthood.
and of course, that was like us with our kids. I have
Yeah.
so many memories, of course, like our marriage and other things, traveling.
Right. Yeah. And I think the thing that comes to mind for me is joining you on a Piano Guy shoot in New York City. You filmed at this beautiful cathedral and I got to come help. And it was the first time we were away from our kids since we had kids. And yeah, just like a fun week in New York City, just like eating at cute places and walking around.
It was fun. New York we had to go back to New York. It
Yep.
was fun.
We got to go back.
Are you guys genuinely happy? I think a better way for me to answer that is I feel in alignment. And because happiness is something that comes and goes.
Yeah, I think because of our culture we grew up in, happiness was like held up as the most important thing in life. And yeah, it does come and go. I feel like when you really feel like you have choices in life, like I choose this, I choose our family, we have chosen to go through this experience together, you feel all in and like really present. And yeah, sometimes there's highs and sometimes there's lows with that.
We're just like any other couple. We have ups and downs, so our challenges, getting kids to school, all that fun stuff. So
Yeah. Do you two have similar style in clothes? I mean, it's a relative question, right? I'm relatively yes, but I would say your style is a little bit more androgynous. We also have different body types. Like my whole life I've been trying to elongate. Like I'm very like curvy and like pear-shaped. And I'm always like trying to elongate things. And you're like, okay, I've got plenty of length. You've got this beautiful statuesque figure. And so,
I'm trying to shrink.
well, it's been a process of I'm used to dressing a certain way. And oh yeah, like for your body type, accommodating that,
Yeah.
which it's all an asset, baby.
What are your thoughts on monogamy? I am all for one. and one for all. I just want one person. And I've been with Amanda since I was 21, and that's the person I want to spend my life with. So,
Yeah. That's when we got married. We got married when you were 21.
yeah.
She took me on my first date when I was 16. So I'm like a find your penguin and die together kind of person. So
And we don't judge people that choose differently. So,
No.
yeah.
it's great. Are you guys closer than ever before?
Yeah, I think so just because I feel like I'm more authentically me. And I think part of this process has been discovering things about yourself as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like just having to make these major life decisions, you learn a lot about yourself for sure. And so I think, yeah, it has that sense of us both just being kind of stripped bare and understanding each other's most basic, essential selves.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about not having any rules that say this is why we need to stay together, but yet still choose that, if that makes any sense. So I think in that way, it gives us a very stripped down, beautiful, authentic relationship.
Yeah, because our religion was very much, it's automatic. Like you stay, and a lot of families get divorced within Mormonism, of course, but we were all in a routine, and everything that's happened the last couple of years absolutely crashed the routine. And
So it's been 100% our choice. So.
yeah.
Do people ever ask you, do people ever ask if you're sisters, and how did Shaye get so good at makeup? Oh, thank you. I don't think I'm that good.
Yeah, you really, I thought I would be doing your makeup for a while. It seems like I did it like once or twice, and you were like, I got this, and you were doing it all.
Do people ever ask if we're sisters? No, because I'm like a full foot taller than Amanda.
Online we get questions like, you guys look like sisters, right? And our coloring is really similar. I can see. I would be happy to claim her as my sister with benefits.
That's kind of weird.
Did you guys have to get divorced and remarried as a same-sex couple?
No, that's not something that's required in the US, so.
But we have talked about renewing our wedding vows. Maybe we'll do that at some point.
Yeah.
That would be really fun.
I'll share that with you guys. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
How have your kids felt about leaving the Mormon church?
Well, what was important to us from the beginning was giving them options. So we never said, hey guys, we're never going back to church. That's the end of it. It was very much, we're learning some things where we're not comfortable. And if you would like to go, I will go and sit with you. We've always been, and that remains an open option with our kids. But so far they haven't wanted to.
Yeah, our oldest was around 8 years old. So I think for her, it wasn't as big of a deal. Whereas maybe kids are older, they might feel some social disconnect living in Utah. So how did you find a community outside of the LDS faith? I'm not gay or trans, and I feel lost. Yeah, that is hard. I don't know where you live though, but living in Utah, I think we've been a little bit spoiled just because we've been open about our experience. So consequently, a lot of people reached out to us.
Yeah.
So that's allowed us instantly to know who we feel safe around and who we can talk with. So I also don't want to make it sound like we cut everyone off that is still in the church. We still love our family that's in the faith and have friends that are in the faith.
Yes.
But obviously there's a disconnect when it comes to some of these deeper, I guess, topics. One of them being me. So
Yeah. And Mormonism is like a really big part of people's identity a lot of times. It gives people a big sense of community. And so it is jarring when Mormons have people they love leave. But yeah, I think within, what we'd call maybe a post-Mormon community, there's very quick bonds because a lot of people have similar experiences. So, Jen, how has your faith changed since Shaye finally became free to be who she was created to be?
that's a really good question. And I think we'll answer that actually in an upcoming video.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to unravel with that.
A lot to unpack.
Good question, though. And we get that a lot, so.
Yeah. So this question's for you. What was high school like for you as a non-out trans woman?
It was kind of traumatizing. But also, I think by the time I got into high school, I was really good at dissociating, It was hard in the sense that it felt isolating. There was no one even that I could look at that I could relate to. And I'm sure there were people out there just like me going to my school, but it just wasn't something talked about. Even being gay wasn't something to be open about until you graduated. And then you came out. So it was hard. But also good too. I had some happy memories. So I don't want to make it sound like my life was always horrible.
Like, I remember those years, and she was known as like I remember before I even met you, they were like, have you met Shaye Scott? She, different pronouns at the time, but Shaye plays the piano and is this amazing, tall, dark, and handsome, all the things. So you were very successfully in that role. I think that's why a lot of your high school friends have maybe had a harder time with this because no one would have known, right?
No, no one would have known. I was deep in playing the character of the old Shay. So, how did you go about telling your closest friends? How did you go about telling your closest friends and family about your transition? Have we ever talked about that?
Not really.
I think they kind of found out when we released a video called "Why We Left the Mormon Church."
A coming out story.
Yeah, the part where says a coming out story, I'm sure intrigued them. They all probably thought Amanda was coming out.
Though we really did talk to all of our close friends and family before that. Mm-hmm. You had opened up to them.
And I think by that point I learned about a word called gender dysphoria that gave me the language to explain what I was feeling. And I remember when I came across that word, I just cried because it described me perfectly. So I think having a medical way of explaining this to other people was a freeing way for me to use language for the first time to explain to my loved ones what's going on with me. So
yeah, things like that to talk about at first. You don't know how to even tell the story. And I watched as you became more equipped to speak your truth. And then it got easier. But yeah, you really made it a point to talk to everybody. And sometimes people would turn that around and also come out. We had that happen a couple times. Not specifically with being trans, but being part of the queer community. Mm-hmm. So sometimes surprises. Do you have an exact moment the egg cracked?
I think learning about what gender dysphoria was and realizing that was me, and then realizing gender dysphoria is the feelings associated with being trans. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm transgender. But I wouldn't say that at first because that was too scary. So I guess probably 2019. What is your favorite core memory with your true self? So is that going back to my childhood or just like...
I think you would answer that either way.
You know, it sounds kind of sad, but I don't know that I've had one yet because I feel like I'm still unpacking and unraveling a lot of stuff. So I've had moments though. I think like going to Pride was really amazing for us with our family and having so much support there. It just made me feel seen. So
yeah. Oh, sorry, that makes me emotional. It's just, I really want that for you. What has surprised you the most about transitioning?
That I transitioned.
that you did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's my answer. That I actually did it. Like I didn't think I would ever do this. So here I am, and I'm talking to you. That's actually adds another layer of craziness. So.
Yep. And sometimes we'll be out and about, and she'll just turn to me and say, "People really don't care, do they? Like this is really okay." And it's like that realization that the world accepts you, or this is a place where you can be yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have 4 questions left. These kind of get into the nitty-gritty, I think. Did you have any signs you were trans throughout your life, such as maybe cross-dressing?
No, because I didn't know what trans was. It wasn't really talked about growing up. So, but looking back, of course, I can see, I think from the ages of probably 5 to 10, I would go close the bathroom door and put makeup on. And get a towel and put it over my head to make it look like I have long hair.
I remember doing that too.
Yeah, I thought I was really good at it, but then I had to quickly wash it off and like no sign of it because I couldn't bear the thought that my family would see me that way. So clothing, maybe a little bit. I have some memories of doing that, but honestly, when I went through puberty, like for me, it was like end of game. Like I felt ridiculous. Because I just thought I would never look okay. So I had all this internalized like hatred towards like knowing that this ideal self that I had in my mind would never manifest itself, thinking it was too late. So
for a lot of people that relieves dysphoria, but for you it created it.
It did.
You wouldn't have wanted to dress authentically.
Yeah, no way. Like it was, and even what's so weird is I got my surgery. And it took me to do that before I would even consider putting makeup on. Like I think we did one time, and it was triggering just because there's so much of the maleness that I could see in my face, and that's still something I'm working through. So I have a hard time sometimes just feeling like I'm being seen.
Do you plan to have any additional surgery?
I don't know. There are lots of surgeries that trans people can do, and as many of you know, being trans, there isn't a certain way to do that. So even getting, in my case, facial feminization surgery, some trans women don't do that, and that's okay, and that's perfectly valid. So it was just something that was important to me. One thing that has kind of been hard for me, and this is me, is just my voice. And there's voice therapy you can do that's pretty amazing. I'm just trying to take everything kind of slow. But there is also a voice feminization surgery you can do that helps with your pitch. So
Yeah, I feel like whatever helps Shaye to feel more comfortable as herself. Every option's been on the table with that. Did Shaye receive breast implants?
no, I didn't receive breast implants. I have been on hormone therapy for 2 years now, or 2 years, I don't know.
Longer than that, yeah.
Oh, okay. For those of you who know that when you're on hormone replacement therapy with estrogen,
You grow boobies.
yeah. Can we say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Does Shaye want the experience of being in a relationship with a man?
We get that so much. So funny.
That's phrased very politely, though.
Yeah, I get it, because I think people assume that because I'm a trans woman that I must want to be with a man. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things to wrap my head around, which is why I had a lot of self-doubt growing up, was understanding that your gender identity and your sexuality are totally different things. And that's hard for somebody who's cis-normative and are heterosexual to conceive. Yeah, I'm very much attracted to Amanda, and Amanda's who I want to be with. So to answer your question, no, I don't. I don't have any interest in being with another woman either.
Well, that is all of our questions, and we answered them just in time because the kids are getting home from school. Thanks for spending this time with us, and hopefully you got to know us a little bit better. Maybe learn something too.
Thanks for all your love and support.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.